it and I said, don't worry about it. It's never going to happen. In my opinion, this is Alonzo with Ticor, Michelle's partner. He said federal insured loans. So I would imagine, what is that? FHA, VA? Those are federally insured loans. I don't know how much money the government has to insure anything at this point. I'm a little concerned about the debt we have. And they just need to take care of that. But as far as sellers are concerned, we're seeing people that do sell, we're seeing a lot of 65 and up selling, because they're not tied to the market, guys. They have money. Baby boomers probably own the most properties in the country. So if you want to focus in on a group of people, maybe reverse mortgages and listing or prospecting for the senior market, that market is always going to exist because those people have to move. They're moving out of state, they're moving to assisted living, they're moving in with family. And that's what we're seeing in the marketplace, is a lot of seniors moving and selling their property, and they have cash. So
that's a consistent niche for sure.
But reverse mortgages, probably that's something that, I was surprised. There's quite a few sellers that really don't have anybody. They don't have any family. So they're ready to take their money on a reverse mortgage and vacation in Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah. Go live on a cruise ship.
That's right. That's what they do. Yeah. But one of the things we wanted to talk about really quickly is we want to talk about red flags that kind of can hold up your deal. What I see right now, just currently, things that are holding up your deals, the HERO program, the solar liens, because they're taking time to get those and get those demands. And the other one that wasn't an issue before and now has become an issue is homeowners insurance. I don't know about you guys, but I live in Fallbrook, and I'm paying $5,000 for a homeowner's insurance policy. And it's all because I'm in a fire district in Southern California. The whole area is a fire district. So talking to some insurance people about our dilemma, I was talking to a farmer's insurance guy, and he said they cannot write insurance until 2025. I go, what? And so they can write auto. So one of your red flags, and especially in rural areas, everybody, is definitely make sure you get insurance and you've got that in place, because it's becoming an issue to get insurance. And the last thing the buyer needs is like, how much is my policy? What? $3,000? They've got to really look at that while they're hunting for property. And a couple of other things. Go ahead. Anyone have any questions?
I think not even just rural, because there's a lot of areas. I mean, I'm in San Diego, where if I see a home that backs up to any sort of canyon or open space, I'm automatically thinking fire insurance. Yeah. And sure enough, you go look it up, and it's fire zone. So and think about that when you're showing homes too. If you're like, there's some open space behind this house, we should double check on this before we even get into contract.
For sure.
And a lot of those areas are going to require the California Fair Plan.
Right.
And you have to apply for it. So it just doesn't happen in a day. I just had a transaction. All the money was in senior community. They paid cash, but the buyer, elderly woman, said, hey, I want fire insurance in case my property burns down. She couldn't get insurance. It took us 10 days to finally get an application and an approval to get the California Fair Plan. And I don't blame her. It's probably her biggest investment. And we were having a hard time getting insurance, and all the money was in. So right now, like my particular homeowner's insurance said, don't even think about looking, just keep your policy. I said, okay. So I'm going to be paying $500 a month just for my homeowner's insurance. So you're right. They've got to go out and apply for things like that. And don't forget, there are some other things, that are red flags, Liz pendants. lawsuits,
Hmm.
because we get some divorces and then there are some lis pendens judgments, and they have to get demands to close escrow. So I think one of our other red flags that we have right now in the market is getting reconveyances on old loans. Everyone thinks, well, I paid that loan off, but the lender never reconveyed it. So
Does everybody out there understand what we mean when we say reconvey? No questions on that, everybody?
No, we don't.
Yeah, let's just say
even
no,
if
and
no one
also-
answers no, we don't.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
just say no for the sake of
So it's a
the shy
trust
people
deed.
out there.
It was
And
a
guys,
trust
please
deed.
throw your stuff in chat if you have any questions. Now's the time to ask.
What was that
got-
French word you said? Lis pendens?
Yeah.
Yes, we. So
Yeah.
it's a trust deed that the previous owner say he paid off, and they haven't given him the final paperwork to record. It has to be recorded that that loan was paid off. And so a lender's going to want it because everybody wants to be in their position. Say a new lender wants to be in first position, and we've got this old loan that has not been reconveyed. So that's something that escrow orders, and that's something that we title and escrow work on the behalf of the buyer and the seller to get cleared. You know, that expression, you're clear to close. We're not clear to close until we get that reconveyance. And at times when we can't get that reconveyance, we have to get a bond. We've got a bond around it. So once in a while you run into that situation, you can call us, talk to us. We know some bonding companies that will bond around that. And it's important to know that, just in case you run into that.
Let me interject too, just so everybody that's out there that's listening. So yes, we're with Ticor Title. Yes, we do this for all of our transactions, but we, as a partnership with Rise Realty, if you guys are working on a file and it's not our title company and you need some feedback, maybe somebody to review the PR or just some questions on how this works or just direction, just know that we are a resource and we are happy to review whatever PR you have in front of you if you're not getting the support that you need from whatever company is involved in that transaction. We're here for you.
I know sometimes I'll shoot Michelle a text, and just because sometimes we're on the buyer side and something's kind of funky happening and we didn't get to choose who we're using, but
Yes.
I'll call her up and say, okay, I don't know if I like what's happening over here at this company. Like, what's your take on that? And so she'll give me an opinion on it of maybe what Ticor would do or what their policy is, But and there are a couple questions in chat, Michelle, if you want to maybe handle those as we go.
You're gonna have to read them because I don't want to get crazy and mess this up. Can you read them to me?
Oh.
Once I'm done talking, I can get to it. Can you?
Okay.
You want us to act?
They're asking about title insurance protects property owners, lender. Now there is a lot of advertising this title lock insurance.
Home lock.
Why
Yeah.
would we need
Yeah.
title lock insurance if we have title insurance? They're saying people can steal your property by taking it to the county, quit claim, and then have the county recorder having it recorded.
So
How can
most
they
of
do
the
that if it's
county,
not signed and notarized?
I'll answer that. Most of your county assessors have a site that you can go to, and they'll notify you of anyone trying to transfer a deed or anything. You will be notified by the county. We have one here in San Diego. Yes, you do have title insurance. It should cover you through the life of how long you own that property, but it's a good idea. We have not had anyone calling us up and saying, hey, I think somebody's trying to deed something on my property. I mean, our records are pretty updated. So I had an absentee owner call me from Texas wanting to know if I had seen anything peculiar on his property. So I pulled up the most recent grant deed, which everything was fine. He had peace of mind. I said, anytime you want to contact us, we'll run a property profile. We'll check on that to make sure that nothing, fishy has happened on your property. But I know in our county here, they have a website that you sign up on, and they notify you of any activity. In fact, they go overboard. I had a Latin couple who put their name in to the county, and it's a common Latin name, and they kept on getting these, oh, something's changed on your title. It was a totally different address, but the names were similar, you know? And so that's when you call us up. I mean, we're here to help everybody. So if you have a suspicion, or if a client really wants to know, we can sign you up on your own profile system, and you can pull it up pretty much anytime you want, 7/24. But if you want us to do it, we're happy to do it with a phone call, an email, and let you know. You know, we don't see anything. There's a lot of shiny objects and gimmicks out there. I don't think you need home lock, you know, but it's out there. I know they advertise it. We're a different state, you know, we don't close with attorneys like they do, say, in Tennessee or different areas of the country. And you have escrow pretty much is your closing officer for pretty much everything here in SoCal, in California. But I know Northern California is working a little differently. They combine both title and escrow.
Yeah.
They don't separate them. But
and also, you guys, or Travis, I have the contact information for San Diego, but I can also to register to protect your clients' properties. They just basically go on, register their information, their address, and email, and I can find out for Riverside and launch, you know, LA. I can do some research for you on that, send it over so you can share it with the team.
Yeah, I'd wonder about maybe some of the smaller counties with less population, because they seem to not have the same type of I don't know, alerts and storage and how they do things, you know. So that's where I think some of the questions come up is, you know, maybe
yeah, if you're up in
Valley, where
Mammoth
there's
Lake or Yosemite, it's a little
yeah, Central Valley
different-
actually, you
it's
know,
a
we had
different
some questions up there,
county.
and just trying to research anything is actually, I think they're still using microfiche in some of these areas or something. I'm not sure, but it's
Probably
kind of
They have
tough to
more.
like find property records and stuff somewhere.
Mhm.
So
Probably true.
Anyway, a couple of other ones that, you know, can kind of delay your deal are bankruptcies, you know, judgments. And that's why it's important to get your statement of information in when you take a listing. I guess when you're signing your listing agreement, have them fill out a statement of information so you can get that out of the way, because that's more of an in-depth look into your seller. They do have some confidential information on there, but that's how you verify that there are no judgments, no IRS liens, no child support liens, none of those things that pop up towards the close of escrow that can delay your transaction. So get your statements of information in, and everything else is pretty easy. There are notices of violations sometimes that pop up. That might be a question for your lender. Somebody converted a garage into a bedroom. It's been cited by the city as, you know, you need to convert it back into a garage. That could take some time because you have to talk to the compliance department in whatever city that's in to get a release on. But some lenders, I don't know, that's a lender question. I don't know if they care if there's a violation, say on a converted garage. Will they lend on it? I don't know.
Does our lender have an answer for that one? What you guys would do?
I think you're on mute.
What?
No, not you, Andrew.
Oh.
Andrew,
I'm on mute.
I'm like,
Oh,
what?
so the probably within that situation, the real key to if you could possibly close or not, is it a attached or detached garage? That's going to be the key. So an attached garage half converted into a living space, it's probably not going to pass their requirements, because most and again, if we're on a first-time home buyer that's getting, you know, putting 3.5% down, definitely not. You're putting 20-30% down, you could most likely the appraiser will probably post in his comments, property is valued, you know, for the type of loan that it's basically, you know, being purchased with, and you could get away with that. And that's the same situation like I've had, what would we consider like a enclosed patio type of scenario where it's not in its best shape, could use some, an FHA appraiser might say, you know what, we got to have this thing finished or removed. And depending on the amount of down payment, you could have that. But yeah, you know, anything that's half done is always a problem in general, because you don't, it's not anything, it's just a problem. You know, no one wants that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I have a question. What about easements and things like that, which are very common in power easements that come up for like SDG&E or something? I just had one, what was actually recorded as a lease from 1966, and the lender that we were using was like, you got to have this removed. And I'm like, I'm looking at the actual lease, I'm going, where am I going to find this lady from 1966? You know?
You're not.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not. I mean, some of these lenders, like, look, keep in mind, title, we are providing you with recorded documents.
Yeah.
There's a real desirable senior community called Ocean Hills Country Club over here in Oceanside. Very nice. Every title report pops up an old subdivision map, every one, because it's never been released, which means I'd have to go back to everyone that was alive in those days and say, hey, we need you to sign a release. It's not going to happen. So it just pops up. All the lenders, all the title companies like ourselves, we know that that's never going to change, and we can explain it to them.
Yeah.
Because we get I just had a review from another title company, a competitor, and there was an old easement in the back of this vacant lot to have a street go through the back of the property. And then there was an easement from the county to have a 30-foot setback from there. And so the buyer's question was, hey, can I build 9 or 11 units there? And I hooked him up with our title officer, who, by the way, is awesome, Candy Church. So your setback to build was from where the easement is and where that 30-foot easement was. So the buyer was so grateful that we made them aware of that this particular title company said, we'll just take out the easement. You can't do that.
Yeah,
That's just a recorded, it's a recorded document.
Right.
And the buyer was a CPA. So you can imagine, he's totally detailed, like going, hey, I want a release on those easements if you're going to take them out. Well, they had to put them back in. And so long story short, the buyer renegotiated a lower price because it turned out he looked at the worst scenario, like, hey, if I can only build 6 to 8 units, I want a price reduction. I can't build my 11 units.
Yeah.
So he got
Almost 200,000.
$125,000 off the sales price. And we didn't have the transaction, Andrew. We didn't have it. So the guy's like, you guys are awesome, because we had a title officer that was involved and understood that we don't even have the transaction. And then the agent double-ended it, but at the same time, she didn't have a cancellation. She might have had a price reduction. And I know the seller probably was stuck on the price. And what's happening in this market is some of the pricing is a little high. And some of these agents are having to re-educate, their clients, the consumer, saying, hey, I can't get that because due to the easements and the setback requirements from the county, we can only build these many units. So it worked out. So you're right, easements, where we're at, I'm dealing with something now where there's a nursery, a pot farm, and an owner, and there's a 50-foot easement behind them that they can use it for ingress, egress. The guy wants to put a fence up in between his 25 feet and the other party's 25 feet. And so some attorneys get involved, and I said, we can't really help you with that. And I want to kind of give you a heads up on something. When we deal with a lot of these rural properties, semi-rural, we get some agents that go, hey, Alonzo, Michelle, I want an inspector to go out there and kind of show me the property lines. You guys follow me? And we go, fine, we'll give you the property lines. You know, we're not surveyors. We're not surveyors, but we have an inspector that they look for the markings and they go, okay, here's what you're looking at. The only problem is when they go out, if they see a neighbor's garage that they think is encroaching on the property, on the subject property, guess what? They're going to mention it and exclude it from the policy.
So you agents that are listening out there, that's, if you take away one nugget, this right here is really important to pay attention to. So sometimes be careful for what you ask for. Right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I have I've had properties where in a traditional urban neighborhood where for whatever reason the property on one side has allowed their next door neighbor to use their 3 feet of space in their side yard to the point where they've actually fenced in that so it's part of the other property. And I'm showing this to a buyer. This is when I was doing real estate 10 years ago. And I'm like, this is not a good thing. Like you don't want to buy this house and then your first conversation with your new next door neighbor is, hey, I want my space back. You know, I'm like, maybe, you know, I would address this now. And you just never know with the way that, you know, things happen. But regarding title and property lines and things like that, and when we talk about building, like, you know, we mentioned building a garage. What happens when an ADU is added? Does that change title? Is it recorded anyway? Is it like, is there new information that we're starting to see for that? Because this is definitely becoming very common.
It's recorded when it's permitted.
Got it.
Now,
Makes sense.
if somebody's doing something that's unpermitted, we'll never know.
Right.
The only thing we reflect is what's recorded. So if they pull permits through the county or through whatever city you're going through, and the square footage is adjusted, they put it in, we will make the change on there. But we do not actually say in title it's an ADU. We don't do that. You know?
And so if there was no permit for a ADU that is physically there, it wouldn't show up on title, which would be the proof that this is not a permitted structure.
Yeah, we get that. We get that all the time. We get that all the time. Like, hey, I just had one where they go, it was a 13 or 1400 square feet. No, it was a house, 1400 square feet. The agent said, I measured it, it's 1400 something. The county assessor had it down as 1300. She goes, I really like to use the 1400. I go, you can't. You have to go by what the county recorder, the county assessor has it at 1300 square feet. Do not say it's 1400. You're just opening up the door to what I call escape tax, which is another subject we can talk about. Escape tax is something where if it's non-permitted and the seller put it on there and knows it, and then a buyer comes in and wants to permit it, the county can come back and saying, hey, you owe us back taxes on that property that you put up without a permit. You owe us $3,000. It happens. I've seen it. It's called an escape tax. There's supplemental tax bill that the buyers get when they buy a piece of property. And then there's an escape tax when the seller isn't aware, like a probate. When somebody passes away, I'll give you another example. probate, they pass away, the attorney should be disclosing to, you know, the heirs, whoever's handling the probate, that you might have an escape tax on there. And if you do not notify the county assessor in a timely manner, I just had a client go through a probate and they go, hey, why am I stuck with a $3,000 bill?
Yeah.
You didn't notify the county assessor. They catch everything. Remember, the county assessor's in the business to make money. They want to make money. So
Underwriters are the same way, man. They find the weirdest stuff.
Somebody passes away and you don't notify them and they get wind of it. You know, they get wind of it through, you know, whatever, the death certificate. They know that people passed away and, you know, maybe they didn't have a trust, but they did it through probate. They want to be notified that, you know, there was a change, and then they'll go back and charge you from the time, bill you from the time the new so-called heirs owned it to the time they sold it. And then they're throwing their hands up going, what's this? Why am I paying this? Now, if you had a good probate attorney, he'd disclose it to you. Like, you're probably going to have an escape tax on that. But
The
same
escape
thing
tax is real because
it's real.
you and I have a client that I worked with that purchased a house. She knew that she was getting about 1,000 square foot of a bedroom and a small family room in an unpermitted addition. And she was okay with that, you know, good house. The house is nice. It all made sense. But now 2 years later, she dreams of adding an ADU and she's paranoid to have anybody come out there and design and do permitted building, because what she believes, and I believe this is too, is that if a city permit guy comes out to look at the land and thing, once you invite them onto your property, they can't not see what they see. You know, like, oh, well, that's not part of this. Like, and all of a sudden we have exactly what you're talking about. You possibly owe us back taxes, and we need that taken care of before you can do your ADU.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. I have a friend of ours that is same situation. She built a barn dominium. And they came out there and they were about halfway through the process, and then they started looking at the existing barn, and then they started looking at an add-on that she had on the house, and she ended up spending about $25,000. They stopped construction. They forced her to fix her old barn that was 30 years old, raise it 6 inches. She had to raise the roof on the old barn 6 inches to make it of code, and a couple other things. So long story short, it was a big chunk of money that was not part of the original construction that she had to pay out before she could move forward. So it's a legitimate concern.
I got a couple questions. So
go, Travis, go.
That I get. So I had one recently where, and this comes up, I see it even in tract homes where the square footage is not recorded correctly, right? Like you go and you look in the tract, you're like, okay, this model is this square footage, and I can tell that this home is the same model, but it's recorded with a different square footage. Maybe it's 200 or 300 square feet. Could have been maybe a loft option or something like that, that just wasn't recorded. How can someone get that rectified?
So in some cases, we can, if it's brought to our attention, we go to my customer service person, will submit to Black Knight or who we get our data from. In some cases, it can be something as simple as not being corrected in the paperwork, but.
Well, we can, you know what I like to do is I like to verify through other data sources that the same square footage is coming up, but you're saying, hey, this was a Ryland home, and I know that den could be a bedroom, but it never showed up in the square footage. And the square footage, you know, it is what it is. If you want to change it, if a homeowner wants to change it, they've got to go to the county assessor and say, hey, you're missing this square footage. Now, they may reassess it and correct it, but I probably wouldn't go there because I don't want to pay the taxes. I don't want
So-
to, I don't want to pay the additional tax on it.
But if we're talking
Well,
$100,000 swing in potential list price,
Mhm.
because you're at the listing appointment and you're arguing with the homeowner saying, look, tax record says this, you're saying this, and you're showing me a copy of your floor plan from when you bought this thing 5 years ago. Would it still, it seems like it would still be worth it to me if I can get this extra value out of this sales price for them to potentially go and pay the back tax on it, or would there be, because it could clearly just be an error in the recording.
Right, so if it's an error in the reporting, like new construction or community that was built 5 years ago, 8 years ago, Travis, the Summerwind, community, we had that situation happen where, you know, here's a home that was 2580 and it was reported as 21 something. And it was just a simple oops on the builder's input. So we were able to get that corrected. So in some cases, that's something that's a push of a button.
Okay.
Others not so much.
One of the
I've
things
also-
what I would do, Travis, this is what I would do. Being a former agent, I used to be an agent for 20 years. I would go to the county assessor, I would get permission by the homeowner, like say the homeowner is arguing with you, blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do, Mr. Homeowner. I need a letter from you authorizing me to get any and all information from the county assessor as how they arrived at that square footage. Be it floor plan, be it whatever they have a formula. Sometimes they'll have the floor plan there and saying, this is our records, this is what we have. You want to dispute it, Mr. Owner? You've got to do it. But this is what I obtained from the county assessor as to what your square footage is. And now you've covered your butt.
Yeah.
You said, you know what? I went to the county assessor and asked them how they arrived at it. They gave me the paperwork. And we do it all the time. We tell these homeowners, these agents, like, get permission from the owner and we'll send you whatever floor plans, whatever square footage they have, how they arrived at that square footage. And then if the owner wants to change it, great. You did the best you could. You gave it your all, saying, hey, I did everything and this is how I have to sell it.
Did
based on the
that answer your
facts.
question, Travis?
Yeah, so it was more for the team because this pops up actually fairly regularly, actually. Back to ADUs. So now we're going to be able to sell our ADU as a separate unit. What does that look like if someone built an ADU on their property and, you know, they've already purchased it, they got their title insurance in place. Now they go build the ADU, they're going to record it, but now they want to sell it. Is that going to affect their current title policy in any way? What's that going to look like?
Good question.
It's not going to affect their current title policy. They're going to have to sell that separately. I mean, you're going to have to get, if I'm not mistaken, a separate parcel number for that to transfer it over. So you're going to have to go through
When they get
paying for subdividing it. If you're going
So
to be
let's say
selling
they
as a
they
separate building, separate APN.
So let's say they built this building 3 years ago before this new law passed, this ADU, it is not a separate parcel. Are they gonna have to get that parceled first and then
Yes.
sell it off? Is that what that's looking like?
They're going to have to get a separate APN to do that. Because I can tell you a lender's not going to do it. They're going to want to know, they're going to want to have a legal description to that new ADU
I think
property.
so. Yeah,
We've seen separate addresses and we've seen, you know, 123 Elm Street A, 123 Elm Street B, right?
yeah,
Depends on how they structure it.
yeah.
But I know as far as getting a loan on it, I doubt it. If you're going to be able to sell it without a separate APN and a separate legal description. So it's, it sounds really good, but it's more work.
Yeah, this whole thing
We're
sounds like a
working
mess to me. but-
entitled to it. It's sort of like, hey, you buy my property, you get the ADU, you could separate it and have your son buy it. And you'll be all happy and he can have his own property, but you've got to do the process of separating it and getting that new APN.
Yeah,
and
we're
separate
talking
legal
months in
description.
advance before you even get to that point of, I want to sell this thing off now.
Yeah.
So, back to rural versus suburban.
Hey,
It sounds
Travis,
like a lot of the
quick
red
comment
flags.
on the last thing before we
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
So, I've done, I've done a lot of business and I have a lot of history down in Imperial Beach. Imperial Beach is a huge grid, and there are when you purchase a house, let's say you buy it on Main Street, and the way that you get the address 123 Main Street, your door's facing Main Street, you're right there, and you have this giant backyard. Behind your backyard, a lot of these streets have a alleyway. And for the last 30 years, they've been allowing people to build a complete house in that backyard. And they turn and they do get the separate APN, like you're saying, but they turn this property into a like owner managed HOA, where because you end up sharing generally a walkway, because the back property has to have access to Main Street for that APM, because you can't have your front door. There's no address for a alleyway, but so you end up having these they're all over Imperial Beach, and I'm sure anywhere else where you would see deep properties when we talk about things like this, adding an ADU, because we can do an ADU up to like 1,200 square feet, which is the size of my little tiny house here. It's so you can there's workarounds already in place for that. But you are 100% right. It's not a simple process. And when you sell a property like that, like you're literally, you have to go to the neighbor that's, whoever buys your ADU, if you're the seller, they're now sort of potentially signing off on whoever buys your house, even if they have a separate APM, because somehow you're sharing properties. There's got to be a walkway or something, and you create an easement. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a horrible idea.
I'm wondering if you could create a CC&R for that. Maybe not. I know they talk about doing the HOA, but
I think that's what it is. It's like CC. That's what I remember. I bought and sold 2 different ones of these over the years, and that's the key, is that having the CCRs. But there's no payments. There's no meetings or nothing like that. It's just the basic guidelines. And I remember one of them, we had to get the CCNRs adjusted because the buyer had a larger dog than what the CCNRs had, been approved at. So we had to get the neighbor to sign off on allowing this guy to have a bigger dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the CC&Rs would be the way to go, because once the owner, say he decides to sell, or your person that bought the ADU, the CC&Rs carry with the property. So they just need to be aware, and that's another red flag. Please read your CC&Rs.
I was just going to roll into that one.
Clients.
Yeah, you've got to read your CC&Rs, because exactly what Andrew said, maybe you can't have a pink poodle. Maybe you can't have a Saint Bernard. Maybe there's a weight restriction, or, a parking restriction.
We will go through a lot of things when agents are asking us for help. We'll research a lot of things, but when it comes down to the CC&Rs, we're like, no, you have to have your clients read the CC&Rs for liability purposes for you as an agent.
No, that's a misconception, I think, is, people think CC&Rs, okay, it's got to have an HOA, right? But that's not true. There's a lot of, pretty much everything's got CC&Rs, really. If you're in any sort of, especially subdivision, just because it doesn't have an HOA doesn't mean it doesn't have CC&Rs with it. So you do have to look at that kind of stuff, especially like, I guess, what Andrew's talking about. That's a old neighborhood down there that did this thing because that's what they did back then, and so now we're having to deal with it because things have changed. So now
we had a situation, this was another agent this was from another title company, and they were asking my opinion on CCNRs. And I used to live in a tract, Kaufman and Broad, where they had CCNRs, you know, no satellite dishes, no industrial trucks in front of your property, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, nobody was there to enforce it. So the CCNRs never got enforced. Everybody was doing whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
Putting up a satellite dish, painting their door red, like you're supposed to go with what's conforming with the development. But I had a situation where this agent goes, oh, we're in a high-end neighborhood, very high-end neighborhood. And it was kind of an estate, maybe 2-acre lots, very big homes. And they go, this got asked by a buyer that if we could make this a home for rehab. And I go, I doubt it. I think your homeowners next door would have a big problem with that if they knew, because in the CCNRs, it talked about how you could not have rentals. You could not rent rooms in the CCNRs in that particular neighborhood. Well, if you're doing a rehab center, you're renting rooms.
Yeah.
I said, these people in your neighborhood have attorneys, have money. I would not go that way. Yeah, I think you're opening up a problem for yourself. And,
sure.
you know, it was just sort of an agent asking us our opinion. And I said, I don't know, the way I'm reading it, I don't think you can do it, but you're taking a risk if you do that.
Yeah.
You know?
I have so many questions, but we're getting towards the end here. One thing that a few people have said in the comments, they are interested in getting information on where to set up their alerts for the properties in case any weird shenanigans starts happening. Various
So-
counties and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, so Travis, I'll ask Joanna to do a little bit of research for a couple of the surrounding counties, but I have San Diego and Riverside, so.
Okay.
I'll
We have a
send that.
request for OC and
There are
others.
some counties set up with it and some are not,
Some are not. Yeah.
you know, so.
Yeah.
You know what, one red flag we did not cover, which is almost every week, multiple times, is judgments for child or, you know, spousal support. That comes up all the time. It's a common thing you've all seen. That's the fun thing about this class is we could all sit here and probably every one of you on this call have had an experience with some kind of red flag issue. And then you get in the middle, titles tell you have a problem. And then all of a sudden we're like, how do you fix that? So
yeah, all of a sudden breaks.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
transaction stops, got to deal with this. Now we're going to court and all this other stuff.
yes, yeah. And it pays. It's funny. Every situation is different. Alonzo's been doing it 30 something years. I've been doing it 20 something years. You know, every week or every month we have something new.
A lot of those are child support, Travis, or alimony. They just want to be updated. So escrow can get a demand from the district attorney and say, are these current? That's all title wants, that they're current, they're not falling behind, or else they're going to be asking to make it current.
Yeah.
You know.
Now I know the answer, but I've been in the business a long time. I've seen a lot of stuff just like you guys have, and I've had transactions come to a halt and cancel because title issues. What can we do as a listing agent to ensure that we can sell this thing? You know, even if you go in and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I bought this new or whatever, I've only been here a little bit of time. That doesn't mean there's not going to be a title issue or something else that comes up, such as one of these judgments or something. So what can we do as, you know, listing agents to ensure that this thing's going to close after we put it on the market and spend marketing dollars and get a buyer and all this fun stuff, only to have it cancel because something came up?
Well, on our side of things, we always recommend with the listing agents, open that preliminary title report in advance. It allows us to be ahead of any potential issues or problems. Lets us know, like you said, if there's a discrepancy on the square footage or there's something in play that, you know, these child support liens, I'm sorry, they don't go away overnight. We need a little bit of time for some of that. So that's my
One thing we do
feedback.
that I like that's a lot different from probably most title companies is when you pre-open the title report and we get it back, we will send you a summary, a highlighted summary saying, this has to be addressed, this has to be addressed. You're gonna have to get a demand for escrow on the HERO program, on the solar program. You know, you're gonna have to get an update on this child support or get a statement of information. We will spell it out in the summary that we send you. And, you know, make sure you read the summaries. They're usually short, but they're to the point. And
Yeah.
you have those, and you can say, hey, Michele Alonzo, I don't understand item 14 that you said needs to be addressed. You know, and it can be, you know, the judgment, the loose pendants. You know, like I said, the biggest, I would say the delays are reconveyances on old trust deeds. The HERO and the solar programs, they are taking longer to get from the solar companies, you know, the demands for payoff. And then, you know, we get some sellers that go, well, I don't know anything. I go, yes, you did. You signed something.
Yeah.
They totally forget
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they signed, that some sales guy showed up at their door and signed them up for, oh, it's not going to cost you anything. And it's in their tax bill.
Yeah.
It's in their tax bill.
And-
And so we look that up. And we'll also, when we can, look up Mello-Roos for you. And we'll talk to, you know, the accountants at the city and ask them how much longer on this Mello-Roos. You know, well, this has got another 10 years or 20, or this will be paid off. So there's a lot of shortcuts and things that we do for you, the agents, so you can talk to intelligently these potential buyers and buyers agents.
And Travis, let me chime in on that, like, in reference to opening the preliminary title report and researching that. We started doing that because what would happen if we didn't review that PR and get intimately involved in advance is at the very last minute, escrow finally gets to it with their 50 files on their desk, and they open it up 3 days beforehand. And they're like, oh, shoot, there's this, right? Especially if the agent hadn't gone through it. This was happening a lot. Well, you know, none of us are going to get paid if the deal doesn't get closed. And we realized, wait a minute, this is an area where, you know, not all of us are experts on how to read a preliminary title report and what to look for. Hence the reason we're having this class, right? So
Yeah.
just know that that's, you know, if you get a summary from us, that's a substantial amount of time that somebody went through, one of us team members went through to make sure we flag any potential issues. And that's key for you as an agent. So that's the answer. As an agent, make sure that PR has been reviewed in advance before the doggone thing even hits the market.
Yeah. All right. One last question, because we're right about that time. Oh. One
What was
last
that?
question we had was if someone quit claims you a property and you later find out that they had liens, what does the new owner do?
Here's the deal. Was that an uninsured deed? If that was an uninsured deed, you're SOL.
Yeah.
It happened to me.
Really?
Hello? It happened to me. I was door knocking. I was an agent. I said, sure, I'll buy your property and I'll give you so much amount and I'll assume your loan. Well, she had all these judgments, back taxes. Guess who got stuck paying them? Me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. So be careful. Uninsured deeds, you get stuck with a lot of the liability that previous owner didn't tell you about. That's why we want statements of information. Oh, before you did, you know, grant it over to me. I mean, we could run a statement of information, but we're not going to insure it. Now, if I was getting quit claimed or somebody and I agreed on, you know, deeding it over, I'd get insurance. Now it's minimal, but I'd like to get insurance to protect my interest and make sure I'm not assuming someone else's liabilities and problems. So it happens. Do not, uninsured deeds they're all over the place. I'm dealing with them all the time. You know,
Quit claims are also, I mean, they are the easiest to use and they're pretty much the most flimsy on paper. I mean, the only thing they really do is release the person from liability, but they don't remove any liability. They just allow you to remove yourself. So like you said, you grabbed it, you just took the baton and now you're stuck with it.
Well, I'll give you a scenario, Andrew. You say you had a loan on it. You were the lender and somebody quick claimed to another person, didn't notify you or anything. Who's responsible for that loan?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your old seller, not the new buyer.
I think the most common place, or if you know, for the agents watching, the most common place that you might see quitclaim deeds being used is between probably divorcing spouses. But a quitclaim deed only releases that spouse from ownership rights of the property. If they're on the loan, they're still financially responsible, you know. And you know, even if you look at what a quitclaim deed is, it actually they literally say, you know, these are best to be used between friends and people you know. Like if you don't know what's going on, that's not a great document to use.
I got a quick question for you as a lender. So say I have a big family, I've got 5 sons, whatever, and I took title as joint tenants, husband and wife, and I want to leave, say, the property to 2 of my kids or 3 of my kids. Wouldn't it be easier to just put it in a trust? I don't mess with anything as far as the vesting because the county's not going to do anything about that. And you're pretty much okay if it's, you know, the family trust of whoever the buyers, the buyers that did the loan through you, you're okay with that as far as a lender, right?
Yeah, for transferring, yes, for sure. And ideally, you would want to do that because, you know, especially in California, I mean, you don't want to pay the taxes. That's the only way to give that property to your family without them eating the taxes, is to put it in a trust and make them the beneficiaries of the trust.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right, well,
one last thing, Travis.
Okay.
See my buyer and seller guide? See
Yeah.
it? It's electronic. So if anybody
that's much
wants
better.
it,
Yes.
we've got an electronic version for any and all of you.
I'll send that over to you as well, Travis.
Just ask us for it, and it's got everything in here. Any questions, why you need title, binder, everything. It's got
Good
everything
nighttime
in there.
reading.
Yeah. It's good.
All right.
Good stuff to take with your listing presentation too.
Yes, well,
Always
we
like
sure.
little drop off stuff.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to be part of the Rise team. And if there's additional questions, I will put my stuff, I guess we're going to disconnect here, but they'll have my information in the back office. Yeah. Or be able to reach me.
Yep. We do have information in the back office under Ticor, so you can always find
Perfect.
stuff there. There is
The ending is the ending of these Zoom meetings is very anticlimactic.
It really is. We're like, okay, see ya. So,
Yeah.
no, really though. Thanks for coming
Thank
on.
you, Andrew.
We'll have you on again, of course.
Wonderful.
And I think this was really informative. And I mean, we could probably ramble on for another hour with this stuff, but we don't
Yeah,
want to.
it's true. Giving examples, that's the fun class, actually, when you
Yeah.
start just giving different, in this situation, that's a great way to learn from.
Yeah,
Needs
Absolutely.
of information forms.
And we're a tremendous
looking-
resource for you for data and resource. I mean, we have a lot of data and resource for you. So don't hesitate to reach out to us.
I have 2 different people asking for a statement of information forms. I can send an statement of information form along with the buyer seller book as well. I'll send that
and
over.
then,
Yeah.
someone else asked what a PR is. That's preliminary report.
Preliminary title report. Yeah.
So, all right.
All right.
Well, I appreciate
Wonderful,
it.
everybody.
We'll be
Thanks
in
for
touch,
having
Thank you.
and, all right. Thanks for coming on.
Bye-bye
We'll
now.
see you. All righty.